Often a cause for acute emotional stress and distress for some. Often people battle to get through this time of year. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group's counsellors are on the lines to help those feeling in despair. SADAG Operations Manager Tracy Feinstein joins us in studio now. Good afternoon, Tracy. Thank you so much for making time to come through to the SABC News Desk this Christmas Eve.
It's a real pleasure, and thank you for your support. Thanks for having us.
The holiday is always such a trigger for emotional distress. What are some of the problems that manifest during this time of year, Tracy?
I think, we tend to believe that it's meant to be a time of festivities, happiness, joyous occasions, but it's not always the case. And for a lot of people, it's been a tough year. People have had a lot of issues around relationships, perhaps breakdowns in relationships, divorce, separation. There's been financial pressures. People may have lost loved ones. And, as much as there's the grieving stage that people go through, this might be the first Christmas where there's going to be an empty spot at the table. So when you put all of this together, together with the fact that we really are in total emotional beings, we've got our physical side, we've also got our mental side, and that is where SADAG comes in, so that we're very aware that for different people, these things do play out. And I think it's a time for us to realize that, unfortunately, the element of depression can really bite hard at this time of the year.
Tracy, bereavement, financial stresses, depression, how do those feeling lonely or suffering from these stresses best handle this time of year? What are some of the coping mechanisms you can share with us today?
So I think what is really important is to be aware, number one, of people around you. We talk about the season of gratitude and caring. So, look out for people that are alone and by themselves. For the individuals who feel that they are alone and they feel like they are depressed, some of the coping skills that they could look at is, for example, be kind to yourself. Don't put yourself in situations that are going to be stressful or trigger more depression. Do whatever you can to sort of get yourself out there. Maybe knock on the next door neighbor on their door and say, are you also going to be alone? Could we share a cup of tea together? Try, even though it may be difficult, and family dynamics may mean that you want to say, no, you know what, I'm not going to get together with the family. I'd rather be by myself. Just put yourself out there and see if maybe it's just at least you're not by yourself. And I think this is the biggest thing. The isolation together with the depression is really difficult to cope with.
Do we see a spike in suicidal behavior during the holidays, myth or not, Tracy?
I think that everybody is looking to say, is there a spike? I think there's a combination of elements that are taking play. Together with the media, SADAG has worked exceptionally hard over the last year to really break down the stigma and create the awareness and educate people. So I think a lot more people feel a lot more comfortable that they can phone SADAG, they can speak to the counsellors, they can get an early diagnosis, they can get support at the hospitals. And therefore, we're able to intervene at a much earlier stage. There's 1 in 3 South Africans is or will be suffering with a mental illness, in particular depression. So the numbers are high. And therefore the message out there is really get an early diagnosis, get support. In terms of breaking down the stigma and not judging one another, is be kind to the individuals for whatever they are battling with. And just encourage them to be with family and friends.
This kind of suicidal behavior, of course, it's a complex phenomenon, and there must be an interplay of multiple factors. What are some of the risk factors we should look for?
Yeah. So some of the risk factors are, first of all, mixing medication and substance, in particular alcohol, at this time of the year. Listen out, for people saying, my life is over, I'm not happy, I don't like the space that I'm in. do not just say things like, get over yourself. It's going to all be okay. You don't really know what that person is going through. So don't brush off comments like that. For parents with children, you know, we tend to think, oh, the teenagers, they love to be in their bedrooms by themselves with the earphones in and listening to their music, and they must be fine. Perhaps, you know, put some boundaries in place and say, you know, we'd like you to interact and talk about the things that are meaningful. You know, so when you see behavior changes like that happening, even if you can't help the person, say to the person, you know what, I care about you, I'm concerned about you, here's SADAG's phone number.
Tracy, does the use of alcohol and drugs, it is party season, a lot of revelry, exacerbate problems like depression?
Definitely, it does. And it just makes it that much more complicated and complex for a medical diagnosis to take place. It doesn't matter what chronic illness you've got and medication that you are taking, the scripts always say don't mix, you know, alcohol and medication.
Very quickly, before I let you go, we are running out of time. Tell us about the services you have on offer and the National Suicide Crisis Hotline. Give us that number if members of the public need to reach you.
Thank you. So yes, we are open through every day, Christmas, New Year. Our suicide crisis line is 0800 567 567. We have a 24-hour toll-free number as well, which is 0800 12 13 14. And the counsellors are on duty from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then we have a dedicated group of counsellors that are working the after-hour lines.
Tracy, thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk, and do continue your good work, and we wish you well over the Christmas season.
Thank you.
All right, that was Tracy Feinstein. She's the South African Depression and Anxiety Group's Ops Manager. Now, she's given us that National Suicide Crisis line that can be reached on 0800 567 567, alternatively 0800 12 13 14, and counsellors are ready on the line to take your call between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. Let's move on to some other news now. Hamas on Saturday welcomed a landmark UN Security Council vote demanding a halt to Israeli settlements in the occupied territory. The Palestinian Islamist movement said the vote marked an important evolution. Well, the UN Security Council on Friday demanded that Israel halt settlements in the Palestinian territory after the US refrained from vetoing the resolution condemning